Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 102 of the podcast. And today I'm answering a question that I receive fairly often, and that is, do you ever sleep? So I figured that will make a great podcast episode, just talking about living a balanced, happy, creative life, and how I get as much done as I get done every week. And, answering that question, do I actually sleep at night? Or do I stay up every single day? Which I hope you guys know the answer to that. So that's going to be coming up soon later on in this podcast episode. But I always like to share a little bit about what's going on around the house, behind the scenes, what I'm really working on. So if you want to jump ahead and get straight to the podcast, you can. Just look for a timestamp below this video, and that will guide you to where to click ahead in the podcast so you can get started with that topic. But I'm going to hang out for a minute and share what's going on and what I'm really working on. And what I'm working on is a Miss Bunny design. So this is going to be a version of Miss Bunny, and she is covered in undulation, my favorite quilting design. So I've already drawn undulation over all of her body pieces, and I've also done a version with feathers. I think that one looks really cool. And now I'm just going back over it with a nice marker, so that way the lines are nice and dark, and then hopefully that will make turning this into fabric a lot easier. This is going to be for the Miss Bunny Spoonflower panel, which I have, continued to work on this week. That has been on the list, but unfortunately I did not get my job done. I did not get the work done. It's just been really kind of very, very busy last couple of days, and a lot of that was just I kind of went outside on Saturday and stayed outside the whole time and finally finished my rabbit hutch. So I kind of put all my time into that and did not have very much time to work on Miss Bunny, but I will be coming out with that very soon, hopefully. So yeah, rabbit hutch. I had a good bit of work done, ready, to go on it, and I did not know if I needed more wood. I did not know if I was going to have to go back to Lowe's and get more 2x4s, or, what was going to be happening next with it. So I just decided to get started and, began screwing up the sides. I needed to put plywood on the sides, which technically I should have done the sides before I did the roof, but lesson learned. This whole thing has just been a massive learning experience. But I got the sides up, and then it was clouding up, and it was clouding up in that way where it's like threatening a storm, threatening a storm, threatening a storm, and then it would blow over. And it did that all Saturday. So it would threaten this massive storm, the trees would be bending over, and the pollen was flying everywhere. And I, would just kind of hold out on it. I can hide underneath this roof, this massive roof I put on the rabbit hutch anyway, so it didn't really matter to me if I got wet or not. I just needed to protect my tools. And it would cloud up, it would get crazy, and then it would pass, and we wouldn't get the crazy rain. So I just kept playing chicken with that rainstorm. And I ended up getting so much more done on that than I expected. At first I was just going to go out there and get one side up. I ended up getting both sides up, and I got the boards that go down through the middle. Now all I have to do is build my cages, and I'm ready for rabbits, which is pretty exciting. I'm really thrilled about that. And it just felt really good to be outside all day and get that done. I've been kind of feeling, up and down this spring, just the, allergies, the pollen and everything else. But, Saturday was really, really good. I felt great. So that was nice. And then Sunday, I finally got into my barn, and I got the finishing touches done on a cabinet that I've been working on. And this cabinet is kind of funny. It's gone through basically 3 different iterations with me as far as taking it and making it something else. So it started out, this was a wooden box that my grandfather had turned into a light box. And so it came from him. And that was the original thing that it was. And so I took it as a light box and built it into a bigger light box and put legs on it, so it was basically a light box table. Well, then I didn't really need that anymore, so I took the light box and all the lights out of it and the plexiglass off the top, and then I was left with this wooden box. And I kind of looked at it for a little while and, just thought, what am I going to do with that? I was going to just take it to the dump, but then I kept looking at it and looking at it going, I wonder what I could do with that. Dad had the idea to turn it into a cabinet, and we was going to put it in the house. And then I realized, there's really not, I've kind of covered up every wall in my house, either with a quilt or with a piece of furniture, one or the other. So there's really not that much space. But I thought about it some more, and I kind of hauled it out to the barn anyway because it was in my way. And then it was out in the barn, and just thought that would make a pretty cool tool cabinet. And so that's what I've done. I have taken it and I've covered certain parts with plywood to store my screwdrivers and my lathe tools, and then I've hung cups down the side from IKEA to hold other tools that can't be slotted into holes. And then now I'm building the shelves in the cabinet so that way I can hold all of my, like different drill bit sets and stuff like that. Things that's just really easy to just have strewn all over the table. It would be really nice if I could have just a place to put it away. And then I do wood turning. I have a lathe, and I have lots of little kits for like pens and seam rippers and things like that. So it's nice to have a place to put all of those as well. So I'm excited about this. It took a lot longer to put this thing together than I ever expected, mostly because it's very niche. It's like, I want this cabinet to fit this thing and it to be, fit and fiddly. And then I go and make that one part, and then kind of have to measure and figure out what I want to fit next. And some pieces, I think I probably will build a few boxes that will slot in, like an apothecary cabinet a little bit. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And I love that style of cabinet. Apothecary cabinets are the style that are, they've got all those little drawers, and I really love it when they're different sizes. And I've loved these for years. I even, when I wrote Mally the Maker, it was my quilt fiction novel, I made Grandma's house and Grandma's sewing room just my fantasy sewing room with lots and lots of apothecary cabinets. I don't even want to think about dusting Grandma's sewing room from that book because it would have been a nightmare. But when it's in fiction, then it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter how dusty it is. That's somebody else's problem, right? But yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot and realized I would really like to learn how to build something like that. And something I picked up, I guess it was about a year ago, was a Kreg Jig. Now, Kreg, C-R-E-G, is a brand name, and basically what they are, they've kind of created a template, kind of like how we make quilting templates. But this is a template, and it's a jig that helps you screw holes at a certain angle so that you can build a box or just simply join a piece of wood to another piece of wood really easily and quickly. And it's a really secure join too. Usually when, like, let's say this is the end of a piece of wood and you're screwing into it, that's a very weak join and it easily breaks apart. But the way the Kreg Jig works, it gets the screw at the exact right angle, at the exact right depth. It's just perfect. It's extremely good engineering, and that is, I love it. I love quilting templates that work the same way. I love it when you can cut out the pieces to a complicated quilt pattern. Like, I'm thinking a really good one that I loved was Marty Mitchell's Giant Dahlia and the Mini Dahlia. Those template sets are awesome. I highly recommend them. If you have any desire to make a giant dahlia or a mini dahlia, they go together, so you could make a mini to giant dahlia. They're awesome. They really, really are cool. And so I value good design and good engineering. And I love being able to use this jig to be able to do joins and build things that I could not build before. As far as other projects that I've been working on, mostly, just puttering around. I'm working on the Goddess Quilt book, of course, and that it came in a little bit in this podcast episode. I've already recorded that part of it. I'm going back through the blog as I write this Goddess Quilt book, and I am pulling those old posts and I'm rereading them, and I'm gaining so much insight. And this was, 8-9 years ago. And it's really making me feel like I need to get back to blogging daily, because it was such a good way of recording what was going on in our lives every day. And it was just little things, little tiny things were happening, but it's the day-to-day stuff that we forget easily. And, going back through it, it's just, I don't know, it's just been really, kind of it's making me think about the past a lot, but it's also making me really, really grateful for how much things have changed and where I am right now. It's all really good, really positive. And then another thing that happened this week that was kind of also, I don't know, it was almost a surreal connection. I got an email on Monday. I think it was this Monday or it was last Monday. And it was basically like last chance to enter this quilt exhibit. And it was just down the road in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. And it's the I Am Woman exhibit. And they have it every year. I participated 8 years ago. I think it was 8 years ago. It might have been 9 years ago. I don't know. It was a while ago when Shadow Self and My Cup Runneth Over, those are two goddess quilts that I made, were brand new. So it would have been spring after they were finished, I think 2011. So I put those quilts into that show, and I can remember, I don't know what was going on that day, but I remember going to the reception, and I had James with me and Josh with me, and we were all kind of, in that titchy kind of mood, just like we were not necessarily happy with one another, and maybe I had just eaten and had eaten too many sweets or something, but I just remember feeling intensely anxious. And then I won second place, and it was kind of surprising, and I didn't expect that, and it was for My Cup Runneth Over. And My Cup Runneth Over is tiny. She's like 36 by 40, maybe. I don't even think she's that big. And Shadow Self was so much bigger. That quilt was 65 inches. And I can remember just feeling kind of disappointed that I wanted the other quilt to win. It's just so strange, the things that, can kind of seem like a big deal. And, and I can remember just feeling so anxious. And then, I got up to get the, piece of paper or whatever, and James said something, and he was little, and it was like 3, and everybody laughed. And I just remember just feeling mortified. And I look back on that, and I'm kind of going, why? Why were you so weird? Because I don't know, I don't know what was going on in my head. I really, really don't. But I just remember all of those feelings and it just not being a lot of fun. And so I didn't enter that exhibit again until this week. And 8 years later, I entered with Dream Goddess and one of my versions of Eternal Love. That was the quilt that I shared in a quilt-along last summer. And I won second place again, this time for Dream Goddess. And so it was one of those weird, almost like a bookend, like I had that one experience, and then now I've had that experience again. And I'm a totally different reaction, Now I went and I had a great time. I had a glass of water and some cheesecake. I got to chat with some people that wanted to make quilts, and I got to chat with some people that do make quilts that have come to some different things that I've been part of in this area before. And it was wonderful to be able to chat with them and have some fun with them. And I did not feel any anxiety or worry or any of that. I just knew that I'd put something fun in the exhibit, and I had a great time with it. And Josh and James didn't go with me this time. I went by myself, and I hadn't eaten a whole lot of sugar before I went. I wasn't, jacked up. I felt right. I did not feel anxious or scared going into that. And it was a bookend experience. Basically, I had that experience before and it wasn't great. I had that experience again and it was awesome. So it was really cool. And what was neat about that is I probably would not have entered, but because it's come every year for years now. I've seen the I Am Woman exhibit, put your pieces in, all that kind of good stuff. And then they sent out a last chance email that was basically like, oh, hey, we've extended it. You've got 2 more days to drop off your stuff. And that was what I needed to kind of get my butt in gear, I guess you could say. And I took the quilts off the wall. I needed to shoot photos of Dream Goddess anyway. So it was kind of the push. It was the deadline. So I shot my photos real quick. I got some nice shots and then took the quilts and put them in the show. And even if I hadn't had time to go to the reception, even if I hadn't wanted to do that, I feel good about putting it out there and putting my work out where other people can see it. And that felt really good. I feel like for years I've been kind of not necessarily hiding, but just kind of keeping that part to myself in a large way. And now I'm ready to really share that and start putting myself out there again. So that was a great experience on Saturday. It was hilarious as I worked all day on the rabbit hutch. I was completely filthy. Came inside, grabbed a quick shower, made cubanos for Josh and James, and then, you know, threw on a nice shirt and some heels and went to that reception. It was the perfect day ever. It really was. So got a lot of comments this week on different videos, and I just wanted to share some of these with you. And I got a few questions that are really, really great too. So a lot of questions and comments on the video about the Qzone Frame. And this is a new frame that Grace Company came out with, and I shared a video on Friday on how to build it. And I did run through the manual kind of step by step as to how to build the frame. It's very, very easy build. Can go together in about an hour or so. You can put your home machine on this frame. There's a top plate carriage that machines, let's just go ahead and say smaller home sewing machines, because there is a size limit as to the size that you can put on the carriage. So this generated a lot of comments and questions. A lot of people are really curious about it. And here is one question or comment from Marcia Baker. She said, "Great, I've been thinking about getting one. How big of a quilt can be done on it? Thanks, Leah." And on the hoop frame, any size quilt can be done on this frame. And the reason is it's a different style and type of frame. Instead of kind of layering and basting your quilts across 3 rails on the frame, instead you're using all 4 sides, and it's clamping the way like a lap hoop would clamp, and then you'd use it on your lap to do your hand stitching. So it's a different way of securing the quilt to the frame, and because of that, there's not really a limit on the size of the quilt. Now, there is limit, and that is how big of a space you can quilt in if you put your home sewing machine on it. So like right now, and I have measured this and played around with it, my limit is a dead set 5 inches. And I have a machine on my frame that has about an 8.5 inch harp space. So that just gives you an idea. I go from an 8-inch harp space down to only 5 inches of quiltable space, because you're losing space for the bar that holds the quilt in place, and you know, just like that kind of takes up room in the arm of your machine, and you obviously can't quilt over it. So you gotta kind of think about that. But I have 2 quilts that I'm gonna challenge myself to quilt their entire thing on that frame, and I did finally move my frame into its hopefully forever location in my guest bedroom, well, upstairs office technically. No one's stayed in that room in years. But yeah, it has moved into the upstairs office, and I basically pulled out a home sewing machine and one little cabinet that I had next to it and pushed in the frame. So it really is pretty much a replacement of a small sewing setup, can be replaced by this small Qzone frame. Another comment or question was from Diane S. She said, "This frame looks like a great solution for home machines. Can you use quilting rulers with it?" This is a great question. It really depends on your home sewing machine. So I'm setting in a treadle, which is not something you could obviously use on a frame, but you can see the wide base of this treadle. You've got a lot of space here right around the needle. My machine that I have on the frame has that nice wide base, has a lot of space around that needle, and I think that would be okay. It's whenever you have a real narrow, skinny section around the needle that would worry me, because your rulers, you need to have something for them to rest on. That's why we have a ruler plate that we need to use on the Grace Qnique 15R, because you need a place for the ruler to rest on. So think about that. I think it's just going to depend on what machine you have and what that space looks like right around the needle, and whether there's enough space to support the rulers. So far, I've been okay. I've been quilting with rulers just a little bit on my Qzone, and I have the Juki F600 on my frame right now. My eventual plan is to move the Qnique that I have downstairs, upstairs, and that will go on that little frame, and then I'm gonna get a bigger long arm. I know I need to update my 7 reasons why I don't want or need a long arm post. That's an old post that I wrote years and years and years ago, way before I got into long arm quilting. But I'm planning that for a future podcast, actually, of just, why long arm quilting. This is kind of how it works. You get into it and then you start with a smaller machine, and then it's like, yeah, I kind of want a bigger machine. I kind of want more space to play in. And it's just a natural progression of how it goes. And it's, as I said in my other podcast video about long arms, it's just a machine. It's nothing to get too emotional about. But yeah, that is my plan right now, is to play with the Qzone with a home machine on it, get a lot of experience with that. But then, yes, I am planning on moving my smaller long arm upstairs and putting that on there. And one last comment about that from Angela. She said, your objective views on this frame is appreciated, especially considering your affiliation with Grace Company. This was completely informative and presents a good option to an expensive long arm purchase for a beginner like myself. Thank you. And yes, I am a Grace dealer, and I make no bones about that. I love their products. I love their frames. I love their machines, and I sell them. And that helps me continue to make videos and do tutorials and all of this amazing good stuff. And I feel like I'm a good dealer. I work with a lot of different customers that have purchased from us, and whenever there's an issue, as far as like a troubleshooting issue, I really try and work step by step. And then when there's a bigger issue, of course, like a mechanical malfunction, something like that, then we're going to work with Grace Company and make sure that you get the service that you want, and certainly a machine that works and does what you need it to do. So I'm having a great time with this, and it's been marvelous. It really, really has. So yeah, we have little promotions every single month with Grace Company, and this month we're running a special on the Qzone Frame that I've packed a lot of extra goodies with it. You get your leaders, you get a Grace laser light, and the back table inserts. And yeah, all of that comes together for a great price, and that is a special going on at leahday.com/Qzone. This month only. That is the month of April 2019. So if you want to come and check that out, definitely do. Got another nice comment about, just the podcast in general. This was from Wendy. She said, really enjoyed this podcast. We always think we are super moms or super women. I enjoy stitching and listening to you talk. The personal touch is so nice. I went to a guild meeting recently and sat alone. Everyone was in their little group of friends. At home, I can listen to you and feel part of women's setting and hearing about something we love. Thank you for being you. And that is just so, so sweet, Wendy. Thank you. That is exactly why I share the podcast introduction every week. I like just to be able to share and, not feel so alone. That's exactly why I do it. A couple just general questions that were thrown out there. Owen Prince asked, how many sewing machines do you have? You have a different one in every video. Let's see here. Okay, so I've got the Everstone out here in the Crafty Cottage. I've got this treadle, so that's 2. I got another treadle in the living room, that's 3. I have a Bernina that Dad preps stuff up on, that's 4. Got an embroidery machine, that's the Janome 15,000, that's 5. Long arm, that's 6. I've got a Viking that I don't really use, so that's 7, and then another 2 Berninas that are kind of backups, 8, 9, and then I've got the Juki that's on the frame now, so that's 10. I think that's all of them. I actually haven't counted that recently. That's kind of shocking. And some of those do need to be sold. That's on my list, and every once in a while I will go through and eBay machines and kind of clean things out. But in a lot of ways, I use all of these machines for different things. And the sewing machine that I collapsed in order to move the Qzone in place, I kind of replaced that with a treadle, my Singer 15 clone. By removing that machine from upstairs, I'm kind of forcing myself to learn how to treadle and sew as good on that treadle as I did on an electric machine. And I know that's going to be a push, but it's going to be great. So I'm really looking forward to that. When there's a choice of which is the easiest, I will oftentimes go for the electric machine that I'm used to using that's easier to use. But if I really want to learn how to treadle and do a great job with it, then I've got to push myself to use it always. So thank you for that question, Owen. I honestly have not counted my machines in quite some time. Don't tell Josh. He might not let me buy anymore. Okay. Another comment that was really nice from Vicky Robles. She said, gosh, Leah, I haven't even started piecing nor quilting this whole friendship quilt along. Please, how do I get motivated to start? I have tons of 5-inch squares that I have bought, tons of fat quarters, tons of fabric, and I even bought a scrap pack from you to make it special to me. If anyone out there on the site can help me, please, I will listen. Thank you so much. Peace, love, and blessings to you and your family, Vicky. So this was my comment back to Vicky. I said, stop buying and start cutting. You have to stop thinking you need more stuff and begin using what you have. Turn on a good book or dial through the podcast so you can listen to a string of them at a time and start cutting and piecing. Don't worry about the colors or which prints are going next to which ones. Just cut and piece and relax. And that is exactly, I've had to talk a few quilters off of the I need more fabric cliff. I think we all have plenty of fabric. We don't need any more. And certainly for the friendship quilt along, you're gonna use up every single scrap of it. So just get started. Stop waiting, stop procrastinating, just jump right in. If you wanna make a king size quilt especially, whew, you got a lot of stuff to catch up on, baby. So yeah, I really hope that you'll get started with that. Now, we got a lot of nice comments from last week's podcast with Luann Fisher, and that was such a great podcast, and I had so much fun sharing that with you because I think it is so important to be checking in on video games, that, you know, just the time that we're spending doing things, whether it's social media or video games or watching TV, all of this stuff. And this kind of plays into this podcast episode. Why am I getting asked all the time, do I ever sleep? Well, you know, I probably use my time just a little bit more wisely than other people. And that's how I'm so productive. So this is just kind of, it created a lot of connections for a lot of different people. And Colette commented, I'm going to springboard this subject into something else. When I tell people I don't do this, most of them gasp and can't believe what I'm telling them. When people tell me, oh, I was so busy, or oh, I don't have time to do that, fill in the blank. My first question to them is this: how much TV did you watch last week? Talk about a time waster, but moreover, talk about filling our heads with absolute stupidity, ads, negative energy. I call it the idiot box because it's dumbing down our society and interjecting absolute junk into our heads. I just don't participate for the simple idea that it zaps us from ourselves. I could not agree more. I have not watched actual television in years. When we go to a hotel, James is like, oh my gosh, what is that thing? And I'm like, it's an advertisement. Don't watch it. Because he's never seen them before. He's never known how annoying ads can be and commercials can be. So he's fascinated by them. But yeah, I just don't watch TV. Auntie Bernie said, thank you for sharing. I've done the same, stuck in Second Life. I guess that's an app game. I have logged out 3 months ago and have made more quilts this last year than I had in the last 4 years. That is huge. Tanya Marie said, how'd you know I'm playing The Sims again? I had to dust off the sewing machine last weekend to complete my piecing. Good job, Tanya. And Jody M said, Leah, thank you so much for today's podcast. It's really got me thinking about the things I can remove from my life so I'm not wasting time. I love Luann's idea of spending and investing in time. I really appreciate all you do and share. I have learned so much from you. Thank you, Jody. Yes, Luann had this one thing that I think was just absolutely, well, everything she said was brilliant, but this was most especially, and that is you can spend your time, you can invest your time, or you can waste your time. And I absolutely love that. And I feel like, you know, there's so many things, the automatic things, the things we get sucked into where we're kind of, you know, on a different planet. That stuff is an absolute waste of time. You know, if I'm going to spend a minute doing something, I want to consciously be doing it, not just vegging out and going into a totally different frame of mind. And I find oftentimes when I kind of pull myself out of that, it's really a funk. I'm not relaxed. I'm just kind of zoned out. So yeah, I really enjoyed sharing that podcast episode, and I hope you guys will check it out, and I hope you find it helpful, because I wish I had known that before I got addicted to a video game, and I lost really 2 years of my life to that video game. It was awful, and I still feel like I need to make up for that, but talking to Luann really helped me feel like I don't necessarily need to hustle so much to make up for it. I just need to not let it happen again. So that's pretty much it for the news around the house. A really busy week. I do have a little sneak peek of something that I'm working on for a friend. It's a Miss Bunny and a Miss Bunny dress made from my friend Krista Watson's special fabric that's going to be coming out at Quilt Market. So I will hopefully have those sewn up and have some really cute, really colorful Miss Bunnies to show you next week. So one last thing, a super special thank you to all of our new members to our Quilt Friends Club, Jan Eij, Betty Gershoff, Brenda McAdam, and Courtney Beckett. Thank you guys so much for joining in the fun of the Quilt Friends Club. This is a membership-only group that helps support the podcast and all of the tutorials that I share online. It's a supportive place for quilters to interact and make new friends and post pictures. And I share a special video series there called How Do I Quilt This?, where I take the photos of your quilts once a month and share 3 different quilting designs each. And that is a very big video, and I have a lot of quilts that I need to get going on that one for April. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, please come and check out this club at quiltfriends.club. So that's it for the introduction. I hope you have a wonderful creative week. And until next time, let's go quilt. Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 102 of the podcast. And today I'm chatting about, do I ever sleep? This is a question I have received many, many times over the years, almost in every single lecture I've ever done in person. And then just recently, I was asked that question many times. This past week, I was asked, do I ever sleep on YouTube 2 or 3 times, in person 2 or 3 times? And I just decided, you know what, this is a perfect podcast topic. So whenever somebody asks me this in the future, I'll just send them this podcast episode and it will totally answer this question. So first off, yes, absolutely. I sleep every single night. Lately, I'm trying to get to bed before 10 o'clock. I kind of have a long evening ritual, shower, wash my face, do the whole 9 yards. Really, it's helpful to relax because the thing I struggle with, and I have struggled with for years, is insomnia. And that's inability to fall asleep. And then once I wake up, I have an inability to fall back asleep. And that's not any fun to deal with. And so I have learned that developing a really nice habit to relax and disengage from the internet and get off my computers, you know, the nights that I am busy working until right before I go to bed are the nights that I usually don't sleep at all, because I just can't turn off my brain. So yeah, I like to have a nice evening ritual, which means I need to start getting ready for bed about 9 o'clock at night. I find usually though I end up reading or journaling or drawing in, I either draw in my journal or write in my journal pretty late. So that can usually be what keeps me up at night. But I am generally in bed and asleep by at least 11 o'clock every night. I do wake up fairly early because once I'm awake, my brain clicks on and I can't go back to sleep. And then I do wake up early because it's when the house is quiet. And particularly on the weekends, if I'm excited about a project, then I will get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning on a weekend. Usually during the week, if I am taking my son to the bus stop, then I will get up at 5:45 and start my day off early. And that just gives me time to myself to exercise, which is usually the only time that I will exercise. So, you know, there's a reason why I'm torturing myself with 5:45 in the morning, but that's not my typical thing. I don't particularly like waking up super early, but sometimes you have to, you know, work your life around your family. And that's the case for me, is figuring out when I can find that creative alone time, figuring out when I can find that, you know, time to myself to exercise, and then using that time wisely. So, you know, I'm not getting up at 5:45 just to get on a computer and work. I'm getting up that early so I have that alone time to myself to really, it's kind of like that same evening ritual, you know, getting ready for bed, kind of, you know, shutting down my brain and slowing down and, you know, becoming more introspective and allowing the sleepiness to come through. it's kind of doing that in reverse in the morning, where I'm slowly waking up and, stretching and moving my body. And when I say exercise, I mean 7 minutes of yoga. It's really not a lot of anything, but it's enough to kind of just start getting me stretched out and loose and ready for the day. And so this podcast, really, I want to talk a lot about this because I think it's super important to understand that the habits that you build on a daily basis and what is going into your day is going to be what makes you more successful or makes you more productive than if, every day is different. That certainly was the case for me. For many years, I would kind of get out of bed and it would just be, just putting out fires. Okay, what needs to be done first? And I was reacting to everything that was going on in my life rather than actively creating my own schedule and making things happen in a lot more relaxed way, if that makes sense. So yes, I sleep every night, and I feel like that question, when I get asked that question, it's coming from a lot of different places, and I want to address that because there's a lot more to that question than just, am I actually sleeping at night? Because I think that's a pretty obvious answer. Of course I have to be sleeping. But there were a few years there that I didn't sleep that much. And what's interesting is right now I'm going back through old blog posts. I pretty much am paging through my blog one post at a time and reading, not really reading, I'm skimming every single one from, 2009, 2010, very early days of my blog. And I'm going through it because I'm pulling old posts and turning them into a book. And it's been fascinating because I'm reading between the lines. There's a lot more there, if I read carefully, then I'm starting to see where I wasn't sleeping, whether it was from insomnia, just kind of feeling worried and stressed out and that being the cause of it. And then other times I was working on a quilt that I was so excited about and so happy about that that's all I wanted to do. But inevitably, every single time that I could tell I was going through a period of not sleeping, it would end in a crash, meaning, that project would stop going so well and I would put it away. Or I would notice, and I mean, I can look back on weeks worth of designs that were just awful. And this is my own judgment, yes. But, I can look back on, certain times where I feel like all of my work suffered and nothing was as good as it could have been. And it just, things just got ugly and disjointed. And I can remember feeling really frazzled, and it was because I wasn't sleeping. So I really feel like it's very, very important to understand that the life of a successful creative person has got to have sleep in it, has got to be balanced, and most definitely will be better on a schedule of some sort, meaning, certain things happen every day at the same times every day so that there is a dependability there. And that way, there's a set time and place where everything's going to happen. I'm going to stop as soon as I finish recording this and go eat lunch because it will be lunchtime. And that will make sure that I have a pause in my day and I don't just keep working, even if I'm not necessarily super hungry. The tendency will be to keep working, keep pushing through things when really the break needs to happen in order for that work to come next to be the best work that I can do. So I really think that developing this, number one, it took years for me to do this. And it took years for me to realize, wow, just the simple waking up in the morning, having a little bit of yoga time, and a little stretching, little exercise, washing my face, doing my makeup, combing my hair. I know it seems like really obvious, but just the whole hair combing, face washing thing was something I oftentimes would leave, and I wouldn't even bother with it when I was filming videos. This is why, 2010, 2011, 2012, most of my videos, I don't look all that great because I really wasn't taking the time to bother with that. And I also had a very young child, so it kind of it didn't seem like the most important thing for me to be doing. Well, once I started actually taking better care of my appearance, then I realized, wow, when I do my hair, when I put on a little bit of makeup, not a lot, but just a little bit of makeup, when I wash my face, when I have this morning ritual that gets things started, I feel more awake. And when I feel more awake, then I do better work. And when I feel good, when I look good, and every time I go in the bathroom and I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, wow, I'm looking kind of good today. You know, it gives you a little boost and it just makes me smile. And that is what carries throughout my day. You know, every time I catch a glimpse of myself, and when I'm filming videos, you know, half the time I'm looking at myself reflected back at myself. So that's a lot. That's a lot of, you know, oh, yay, you know, my hair is looking okay, you know, that kind of thing. I think it sends that signal repeatedly that I'm awake, I'm alert, and I'm ready to do my job. When I was not doing those things, in especially 2012 was when I really started to do a lot more face-to-face shots with my cameras, and I was sleepy, and in my videos, it's really hard for me to watch those videos because I'm talking so slowly. And the reason I'm talking so slowly is because I felt so tired. And a lot of those videos I was shooting late at night. It was kind of like, oh, I got to get that done for tomorrow, and so I need to go shoot it right now, even though it's like 8 o'clock at night and way too late. And I am, you know, here's a whole day that I, you know, have had, you know, working on the computer, and it's been, you know, putting out fires and go, go, go. And then now I'm turning on the video camera and I haven't combed my hair and I haven't washed my face all day, and I look terrible and I feel terrible. And it came through in the videos. And it took me a long time. It took me that year to really figure out, wow, if I just give myself that beginning morning habit and routine, everything else that comes from that is so much better. And I can do my best work when I feel my best. And I will always act better and do a better job if I feel good and look good. And I really think that all those things are kind of intermixed. I have never been able to sit down and, you know, shoot a really, really great tutorial when I'm just exhausted, bone dead, tired. And a lot of that comes from just having that ritual of waking up fully and then getting started and knowing exactly what I'm doing and then making it all happen. So it's not magic. It's just, I think it's just small, tiny little things, little steps that kind of clicked into place and slowly built my routine. But I didn't do this for years. And this is another reason why I think that, you know, the question behind the question that is, do you ever sleep? And I think the other question there is, how have you gotten so much done? And, you know, I've shared 501 free motion quilting designs. I've now shared hundreds of different, you know, quilt along videos. We've done a different quilt along for 5 or 6 years now. So, you know, I get a lot done. And then at the beginning of every podcast, I share what I'm working on. And I hope that you can start to see, if you watch several introductions, you'll notice that I'm working on the same project for several weeks in a row. And I think that's really good for you to see that it's not just a, hey, I grabbed this and it's done. That's not how it works. Everything takes a process to go from beginning to middle to end. And sometimes it can take months to get there. If we only focus on hey, here it is, it's done, it's beautiful, then we miss the process and we miss seeing all the middle part, all the beginning planning part. We miss all of that and we just see the finished final result. And, you know, you see 501 designs and that sounds really impressive, and 30 walking foot designs and all that kind of stuff. And I know that can be really overwhelming when you first come and check out my site. But please keep in mind, I've been doing this since 2009, which means it's 10 years old. I have had 10 years to create this body of work. And this is the key, is putting out, you know, content or doing something or making something, whether it's, you know, you work on a quilt for 15 minutes every day, then you get that work in for 15 minutes every day. And it's putting in that time consistently. And over time, it adds up and builds, you know. But if I sat down today and was, you know, just getting started with everything all over again, it would take me at least this much time to do it all again. Is what I'm saying is, it's really easy to run away with this idea that other people are so much more productive than you are, and they're getting so much more done, and then, oh, she must never sleep. That's how she gets all this work done. And it's not the case at all. It's a combination of building the habit and the routine daily to have creative time, dedicated creative time, to use that time really wisely so it can be used in the most productive way. And the third thing would be to see how that time and energy and content, whatever you're finishing, whether it's quilts or you're posting something online or you're teaching something, how that builds over time, because that's how it works. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go make a goddess quilt series. One quilt at a time, dedicated effort in each quilt. And then in 10 years, you'll have a series and a body of work, right? There's a saying in the writing world that is overnight success, 10 years in the making. And it's this idea, a lot of times you'll hear about breakout authors, and like best-selling author, brand new best-selling author. Well, when you actually dig into that author's story, you'll find that most likely they have actually been writing for 10 years. And then they finally, all of a sudden, magically written their breakout best-selling novel. And now that has, they've suddenly garnered all this fame and hopefully fortune. And that has come only after 10 years of dedicated, consistent work. And that is what created that book that finally became popular. So it's important to understand that there's so much more to this than just simply the choice of sleeping or not sleeping. There's so much that goes into my day that took me years and years and years to learn. And, it starts with that routine and that habit. Something that was fairly bad for a long time is that I would never have an end to my workday. I would keep working. My son would come home from preschool and he'd be playing, and then, he might go outside and play with my husband for a little bit, and then, they'd putter around the yard, and then at some point dinner would get put on the table magically by one of us, and I'd keep going back to work in between all of that. And there was never a dedicated, okay, it is this time, which means work is over and I'm clocking out and getting off the computer and putting it all away. That didn't happen. And that didn't happen for years. And that was actually as destructive as not sleeping, I'll be honest. There has to be a dedicated time to say, I'm off work. This is family time, or this is me time, time to not be working. And this is really hard. And I've talked to a lot of different creative professionals about this, being able to turn off work when you really love what you do and you're really passionate about it and you really want to make a living with it. And it's really hard to say, okay, this isn't a hobby anymore. This isn't my relaxation anymore. This is my job. And therefore, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be quilting this all evening. I shouldn't be filming videos in the evening. I should be doing something totally different. And for me, it was realizing, wow, I actually really do need to stop and have some time off the computer and have some time off the sewing machines and spend that time with my family. And that needs to happen every day on a set schedule. And that became 4 o'clock. So my son gets off the bus, 4 o'clock, he's home, and I try and stop working at 3:30 so I have time to relax and, chill on the couch and have a snack and kind of take care of myself first. But 4 o'clock is my absolute, all right, can't stay on the computer, it's drop dead time, cannot keep going. You have got to get off the computer and go hang out with your son and husband and have some fun. And then usually he goes to karate, and it's really tempting when I drop him off at karate to go back home and get a little bit more work done. But I have learned that is a path to burnout. It really, really is. And when I'm feeling that pressure to go back to work and back to work and back to work, I have to check in on what's going on in my day, that is causing that to happen. And for a long time there, I was going to yoga classes during the day, like 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, those early morning yoga classes, really not for people that have a job or do, work in the daytime. And once I realized that, I stopped going to those early morning yoga classes. I really started taking better, I just started treating my business better. I started treating myself better by taking the business seriously and by getting that dedicated work in during work hours. It made my evenings so much better. It made everything so much better. And I became more productive because of that, because I was getting my work done in the right time to get my work done. And I had a habit, and this kind of goes along with the whole sleep thing. I had a habit of just letting my quilting time stretch on and on and on into the evenings and into the next day. And I think that this habit is really where the whole sleep question comes from, is because a lot of people know other quilters that just simply, quilt later and later and later into the night and then, go to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I slipped into that habit in 2010, 2011. And the largest reason why, when I look back on it, I can tell that that's what had happened. And I know why. It's because it was the only time of the day that I had completely to myself where I would not be interrupted. That I could quilt on my own personal project and not be interrupted halfway through it, or 30 minutes in, or every 15 minutes. And what I had to learn, and this took years, but I had to learn to set boundaries about when I could be interrupted and when that was allowed, and I had to enforce that. Which means that when Josh would come to me and say, oh, we have this problem, it seemed like a really big deal, it was a major catastrophe, it was important enough for him to interrupt me, I would just simply say, unless you're bleeding to death, it's not important. It's not important enough for me to stop working on this thing that I need to work on for me and this time by myself. It's really not. It can wait. It can wait 1 hour. It can wait 2 hours. It can wait 5 hours, and that's okay. And I had to learn how to let go of that reaction, that desire to go jump and fix it and fix things right that second. And also had to stand up for myself and to guard my time wisely. And say, no, this is important to me, and no, I'm not going to tolerate this interruption. Building the crafty cottage was kind of an extreme example of this, because at that point, my dad started working for us in 2014. Josh was working in the basement. Dad was working in the basement. I was trying to film videos in the basement. It was not working. It was just not working. Inevitably, as soon as I turned on the camera, somebody went clumping up and down the stairs. Somebody would come and open the door. Somebody would turn on music and start playing music in the background. And it was making me crazy. And I, finally just said, you know what? I need my own dedicated space where I can, shoot videos and also just have a space to be by myself too. And a lot of times I will come out here and work on a project, or just come out here and write, or even, sit in my cozy chair and hand stitch. And that's just needing that time alone. And it took me a long time to respect just how introverted I am and how much alone time that I need, and to stop feeling guilty for it. Because that's a lot of the reason why I was staying up so late at night. I was getting into that project. I was, enjoying quilting a quilt, enjoying the process, and then reveling in being alone and not interrupted because everybody else was asleep. And it's a really easy habit to get into, but it's not a good habit because it's not sustainable. Inevitably, those projects would crash. Inevitably, something would go wrong. And then it was like not getting sleep, not getting a good solid night's sleep, not having a routine would slowly chip away at my emotions, at my life, at my well-being. And then all of a sudden, I would be a puddle of goo on the floor, just completely losing it. And it was not pretty. I can laugh about it now because it is actually kind of funny when I think about it. But it wasn't funny then. It really, really wasn't. So I can say 110%, build the habits to do your best, most creative work when your brain and your body feels the best. And that could be the evening, but you got to cut it off so that you're then giving your body the rest and relaxation that it needs so that you can then start fresh again the next day. So one last thing, just to finish off this podcast, as far as just some tips for being more productive. And these are just some little things that I've picked up over the years, some things that I like to pull out if I'm just feeling kind of stagnant, like I'm just not doing as much, or I just don't feel like I've gotten as far on a project as I would like. Then one thing is to go kind of on a staycation, just put yourself in jail and just work on that project and just focus on that project. And again, set some healthy boundaries around that and say, I'm going to be on this vacation and, you guys can go on vacation and I'm going to be on vacation here and we'll all have fun. And that's okay. So many times Josh and James have taken off and gone to Tennessee or gone to Virginia or gone to the beach and had a great time. And I've had a great time digging in and having my little vacation, just able to do my little project by myself. And that I think is really good. It's good for everybody. It's good to get away. It's good to be able to focus and to be alone and to be creative and to give yourself permission to dig deep into a project and to get a lot done on it. And it doesn't make you a bad person or a bad mom to say, hey, you guys go have fun doing something else. I don't do that very often, and it's certainly not the only way that we vacation. We go on a lot of trips together too, but just occasionally you need that dedicated time alone. Retreats, quilting retreats exist for exactly this reason. If you're feeling like you're being interrupted so much at home, if you feel like something is in your way or blocking your ability to sit down and really dig into these projects and have some fun with them, then going on a retreat where that's all you do is eat and sleep and quilt, then maybe that's a solution. And you'll get a lot more done, and you'll get it done in that time, and you'll have a great time with other quilters as well. I think all of that's really good. Personally, I have a hard time being productive in a state like that, just simply because pulling out all my gear and my sewing machine and, it kind of adds so much chaos for me that I'm usually not very productive at a retreat. I like the relaxing and the chatting. I just don't usually sew very much when there's other people around. So, that's just my experience. But I really think, having that chunk of time to yourself is really great, and you can get a lot done during it. And it doesn't make you a bad person to set that boundary. It doesn't make you a bad person to say, you guys go on a vacation and I'll go on a vacation and we'll all be happy. And then, when everybody gets back, you will be happier because you got so much, done on your project. And the last thing is just to work on what you want to work on. This is the thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately because I really put off several projects that I've been wanting to work on for years and years. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, quilting is my job, it's my business. It's also still my passion and my hobby and what I love to do just simply for fun. And it's hard balancing that. And something that I have really had to come back to in the last several months has just been, it's important to make the things you most want to make. And that is what needs to be the highest priority. That is what needs to be made first and foremost. And that was what needs to have the most time spent on it, or at least the best chunk of time in the day to be spent on it. And it's good to just start checking in on your energy levels at any given time. If you wake up and you're a super, happy person in the morning and, full of energy, and that might be the time that you want to jump on your machine and get your best time in doing your quilting, doing that creative task. If you're a little bit of a slow burner and it takes a while to wake up, then that might be the time that you spend journaling or writing, stretching, exercising, all that kind of stuff. And then get on your machine in the afternoon. Look at the evenings too. What are you doing? What are you spending your time on? Last week we had a chat with Luann Fisher about gaming and video gaming, and a lot of people also mentioned television as something you can waste your time on. I'll be honest, I stopped watching television more than 10 years ago. I might watch a show and I'll watch all the episodes of that show and maybe even have that playing in the background when I'm doing certain things. But I don't sit down and just watch TV. I haven't done that in years because it's just, there's not a lot there. There's so many other things that I would rather be doing with my time than that. So it's looking at the things that, you could be wasting time on and figuring out how you can use that time in a different way. This goes back to something Luann said. You can waste your time, you can invest your time, or you can spend your time. And which do you want to do? I really, really like that. And it's definitely made me start thinking about how I'm using my time wisely and getting the most out of it. So that's it for this podcast episode. Yes, most definitely. I get lots of sleep every single night. It helps me be creative. It helps me feel great. And yes, it's so important to look great to feel great, which means having a good routine, making sure that doing my hair and face and all that kind of stuff first thing in the morning is always the first thing that I do. I did not do that for years, and it was a big lesson to learn. And to treat my business, my creative life as the most important thing that I do in the day, as far as, it is a job, and taking that seriously and having a habits, all these little habits built around that. But then also saying, this is a job and I'm going to quit working at a set time every day so I can then go spend time with my family, which then makes me much, much happier. Because looking back, I can say this in the perspective of being in business and doing this for 10 years. It is those times that I was lost in a project, spent long hours into the evening, into the early morning hours, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning quilting, that I might have felt so relaxed and chill because I was getting all that uninterrupted time to work on. But I was spending so little time with my family that a lot of times what would end up crashing was the fact that I felt so lonely. I would then sleep late the next morning. My schedule would be off and no longer in sync with everyone else's. And yeah, I would just get lonelier and lonelier until everything just started to fall apart. So I think it's really important to build a good habit, a good daily set of habits and schedule that keeps you on track, makes sure that you're spending time with the people that you want to spend time with every day, and getting all of the things done, working on the projects that you want to get done. And I think all of that goes into creating a healthy, balanced, creative life. And even if you do that perfectly, I don't think anyone in this world says, oh, I've got plenty of time. I think we're all struggling from not feeling like we have enough time to do everything we want to do in the day. And that's okay. Maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. So I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode. Please share it with your friends. If you happen to have some extra time, share a review on iTunes or wherever you listened to this podcast episode. That helps me out a lot. And if you'd like to support the show, come and join the Hello My Quilting Friends Club. You can find it at quiltfriends.club. Until next time, let's go quilt.